And I am excited because we have Carol Howe in the classroom, our teacher today. So call and text and tell everybody, because I was just informed that Facebook has put me in the low priority. So people are not going to get notifications. So I need you guys to do this. I'm being hit by YouTube and Facebook, but guess what? I am still standing. The word needs to come out, and it will. So let me go ahead and start the record, because we're going to get started right away. Today's teacher in the classroom is Carol Howe, and we are going to focus on conflict and resolution and lovingly getting through both. And so fasten your seatbelt, get in the moment. It's time to just let go and be in the moment. And it's time to learn and grow together. It's time to dance, everybody. Here we go.
The Lillian McDermott Show.
We love, we fear, bridges we burn, we make mistakes, then we live and learn. When life gets tough, and it seems like your best ain't good enough. If you're in need of hope, you know where I'll be right here, right here. And when you need a friend, you can count on me. I'll be right here, waiting for
you. This is the place you can always turn to when you need a friend. The Lillian McDermott Show. To reach out to Lillian, visit her on the web at whenyouneedafriend.com. Now let's all learn together. Here's Lillian McDermott.
Hello, my listening and viewing friend. It's so nice we can meet each other on the air on this beautiful, best day ever. And for those of you who are tuning into the classroom for the first time, please know I've been waiting for you. This is a safe place where you can go to when you need a friend. It is my commitment to provide alternative ways to heal and natural ways to heal. And it is my mission to make awareness, responsibility, and truth a part of our everyday life. And I hope you, my listening, as well as my viewing friend, will feel empowered to embrace a new truth and live the life of your dreams. Now, I've been looking forward to today's class because every time Carol Howe is in the classroom, she pierces through my heart in ways that no one has been able to do in a while. So, I mean, I get pierced all the time, but she really got to me in a great way in January. I believe it was January when she came in, and we're going to highlight that class in a couple of weeks because it's just absolutely phenomenal what we can do through love and what we can do when we see each other, when we see who we are in another person and how to work through that. But today we're going to be talking about all this conflict. As you know, been taken off of YouTube and taken off of Facebook. There's this cancel culture that if you don't agree with me, I am going to walk away. I'm going to delete you. It's getting worse now than when I was younger, because now there's so many different ways to cancel the other person, to make the other person feel bad, to bully them, to make them feel insignificant, like they really don't matter and their opinion doesn't matter. And what if it's you who's doing it? You know, those are the things that we're going to ask today about ourselves. It's the looking at ourselves and how we can transform ourselves. And by transforming ourselves, we can start with other people by being an example. So today, Carol Howe, she is the master teacher of A Course in Miracles, and she's known all over the world because of the work that she's done. And she's also known in the classroom as one of my favorite teachers. And since it is our sole purpose in life to give and receive love and knowledge, I am grateful that Carol is here to teach us how to transform conflict with love. Welcome, Carol, to the classroom.
Thanks a million. Thanks a million. It's like, sometimes people say, don't you ever get tired of saying the same thing over and over and over again? It's like, no, never. It's always brand new and important, and we can't hear ourselves say it too many times.
Well, and when we say it, we're learning too.
That's the whole point.
So when I'm speaking these, like on Monday, our teacher on Monday was sick. And so I thought, to prepare for this show, to prepare for today's class, let's reacquaint ourselves with forgiveness and reconciliation and, and starting new. How do we do that? How do we work on ourselves? Because we want to change everybody else, but we don't want to look at ourselves. Why is that, Carol? Why is it so easy to see the speck in our neighbor's eye, but not the plank in ours?
Because we're so afraid that whatever we see in ourselves is really the truth of us. And we're saddened and horrified and distressed. So it's like, well, therefore, I'll be much better off if I focus on what's the matter with you and possibly dim my distress about what I'm convinced is the matter with me. That's why we do it. And the preposterous nature of this is like, we basically have no idea about how life actually works. Mm-hmm. And our situation would be like standing in front of a mirror, and I have on my navy blue shirt here, and I'm demanding of the mirror that I'm looking at that it have on a red dress or a green shirt or a pink bathrobe or something like that, and completely obliterating the fact that that image in the mirror is not going to change until I change my clothes.
Don't you just love her? Okay, keep going.
And so we go, why won't these people be different? Like, why are they so annoying? Why are they this, that, or the other, when I myself am putting out there what I'm seeing? So the very first idea is that we've all grown up with the idea that the people around us are acting sort of just independently, however they're acting, and gee whiz, I don't have anything to do with it. So I either can defend myself if that's necessary or try to promote myself. But the notion that there is a disconnect between what's going on with me internally and another person's behavior is the biggest myth of all.
It's delusional.
I am the one, and this will sound extreme if you haven't been in learning about this for a while. It's like, I'm the one who's putting the behavior there to see in the first place. And you go, I am not. It's like, you are too. In other words, the process of projection is occurring whether you know what the mechanics are like or not. That's what's happening. I'm seeing what I'm seeing, and I'm putting it there to see. And then we act like, what's the matter with those people that they're behaving this way? And so the first step is, I have to go, I have no idea how this works, but I'm willing to take the first step of responsibility for whatever is in my life. So if we can imagine that the world is like, I live down here in Orlando in the attractions area. And if you can imagine something like Disney would create, where you've got a great big 360-degree circle of mirrors all around you, and you're, I don't know what sort of a fun house thing this would be, and you're sitting in the mirror, sitting in the center, and everywhere you look, no matter where you turn, you're seeing your own reflection. Mm. And therefore, the myth that things and people and situations in the world have the causative properties, and I'm the effect of whatever all those causative properties are, that's the big lie. It's like, I have the full responsibility, and I'm the powerhouse here, and I'm reflecting out here in the world. So the world is my mirror. It's the effect and not the cause. And once we reframe what's really happening, then you go, oh, I'm responsible for what I see and what my experience is, and so on and so forth. Then I can be engaged and interested and see the importance of my becoming much more aware of what my own internal processes are once I ascribe the power to them that they actually have. What do you think?
I'm speechless. Okay, so I have follow-up questions for you because I will always have a question after you make a statement like that. So in today's society, I mean, because I remember the way I grew up, we didn't have all this technical electronics, cyberspace, cyberbullying. Children today are growing up with like images. They're not growing up as much by the parents teaching them right from wrong. It's really the Kardashians teaching them right from wrong.
Yeah.
And you understand what I'm saying.
I sure
And
do.
so this next generation after us, they're seeing things differently than we used to see them. Like, for example, and I know that every generation has this. If you don't agree with me, I'm going to excommunicate you. That's happened. I mean, it's happened since the beginning of time. But now it's a lot easier to excommunicate. It's a lot easier to act as if, okay, so let's say I'm seeing somebody and I'm going back and I'm saying, okay, I want to make amends. And this is what the class that we did on Tuesday, which is I want to make amends with that person because I am seeing myself in that person. And so I want to love on that person. I want to, but that person is unwilling and unmoving. And they just want me to go out of their life like I never existed. The culture today is disposable. Everything you can just get rid of it. I don't want China. I just want plastic. I don't want, that's the kind of next generational kind of thinking. And I'm not trying to be stereotypical, but what happens when you see yourself, you try to make amends with somebody and that person does not give you the time of day? How do you handle something like that?
What you do is you recognize, all righty, in a case like that, I've got my person X out here, and I go, okay, how would I complete this sentence? This person X out here is so fill in the blank without overthinking it. In other words, would you say, they're so rude, they're so selfish, they're so uninformed, they're so whatever. So don't make something up. It's like in the example that you use, what would you, in other words, if you didn't know anything I had just said and you were going to go, that person is so, how would you complete that sentence right now?
You're asking me to complete it?
Yes.
I would say, okay, this is a hypothetical. I would say the person is purposely being offended because they may not want me in their life anymore.
No. In other words, it's like, that's sort of
easily offended.
In other words, you go, that person is very easily offended. And then you go, okay, this gives me raw material for me. If I'm having a response to someone else being easily offended, the only reason I can have a response is because somewhere I fear that I'm the one who's kind of touchy and easily offended. So this person is serving me. In other words, this person is giving me some valuable feedback that I might not have recognized that was there. Because you see, what we tend to say in our lack of understanding about how things operate is that person is so upsetting because they're just so easily offended and annoying and whatever. And it's like, we act like that person has the power to upset me. And you go, Oh, no, they don't. And you go,
No, they
well, where does
don't.
my upset come from then? Where it's coming from, that person's behavior is triggering some kind of unfinished business in me. Because guess what? Only I can turn on my stress response. We act like other people can turn on my stress response. Nope, my stress response is like it's my brain function that turns on my stress response. And you go, well, then what part do they play? If they can't actually get in my brain and mess with it and turn on my stress response, which dumps about 1,200 different hormones into the cells of the body, and that's what creates my upset. So my upset is always an internally created thing. It's like, then what part are they playing? They are touching a wound of my own. In other words, a belief of my own, whether it's I don't measure up, or I'm not okay.
I'm unlovable.
I'm
I'm
unlovable.
unlovable.
I'm unlovable. And you see, they are not responsible for my belief that I'm unlovable. They may have no idea that that belief, although of course it afflicts all human beings in one way or the other, the adjectives just vary a little bit. But here's where something valuable can occur from this. It's like, once I see what the dynamic actually is, which is the person out here is really, you can call it a messenger, you can call it a trigger, but they're serving a purpose. As a friend of mine used to say, they're the SOBs that are sent to save you. Because what they are triggering is a belief that I don't think is a belief. I think it's the truth about me. And when I think that the truth about me is that I'm unlovable, or that I'm undeserving, or that I can't do things right, or I don't have the right to ask for what I want, these beliefs that we think are true about us. And we're heartsick over this. In other words, it's like there's a wound that we carry about this. And you go, well, then it just seems kind of cruel to be, pushing that button. It's like, no, it isn't. Because since it's a belief and not the truth, not one shred of truth to it, if this belief is like a wound that I'm carrying around with me moment by moment by moment, which just sort of anybody can trigger one way or the other, then it's my responsibility to let it go. And that's why the people who, quote, drive us crazy, it can be our biggest gifts. Now, is that just easy to do? No, you have to get used to the idea that what's the part that makes it easier for us is to realize, as you said, the word unlovable. When I can begin to like put this out here and go, look at what I believe. I've always thought this was true. That's a horrible thing to think is true, because there's not one shred of truth to it. So it then becomes my responsibility to change my mind about me. Now, the next question should be, well, how do I do that? Do I just sit in my house and go, I'm lovable, I'm lovable, I'm lovable? No. It's like, as one might imagine, just as it's in my relationships that I discover what I believe, it's in my relationships that the healing can occur. In other words, it's like, because now I can look at someone else's words and deeds, and everybody can agree that they are unlovable, or that they're boring, or that they're whatever it is. But here's where I make the distinction between the words and the deeds that we may speak or accomplish in the world, and the presence of us, the life of us, the reality of us. It's not in this dogfight. In other words, so when I see someone else whose behavior is, however it might be described, as less than loving or less than appropriate, if I can go, yeah, I can see the words and deeds. I'm not pretending like they're fine. I'm not pretending like they're not inappropriate, but I am going to do my very best to say, but this is not the truth about them any more than being unlovable is the truth about me. In other words, underneath the behavior, if you can see it sort of like as an archaeological dig, and I've got my words and behaviors here, and then underneath it is the truth. And when I really want to see that no one at the truth level, at the actual fact of life level, has been ruined or modified or compromised in any way by our words and deeds, that the life presence of us is still loving and eternal and good and an expression of all that is, then I'm actually able to let go of this I'm unlovable idea, because I insist on seeing that their lovability is intact. You see, I can't do it by myself. I've got to, this has got to be universal or not at all. Because if I go, I'm just going to sit at home and say, I'm the one who's lovable and I'm fine and good, and you're not, then I will never change my own programming about that.
Mm-hmm. So in order to change the program, let me just repeat what I heard. In order for me to change the program, I'm not to sit there and go, I'm lovable, I'm lovable, I'm lovable, is to find out, is that my belief about myself? Is it true? And so in doing that, I can see evidence of those who love me, regardless of, I can focus on those who love me as opposed to others who don't love me. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Yeah, that's an excellent thing you just said, because before shall we say, this exercise, there might have been all kinds of people loving you and you couldn't see it because you're busy declaring yourself unlovable and projecting unlovability out here. So it's like all of your attention has been skewed toward searching for the unlovable in yourself and other people. And we always find what we're looking for.
We do.
In other words, and so sitting right next to that can be your own lovability, your own, all the things that you do right. You'll look right at it and you won't see it because you're looking through the template of unlovability. You're looking for a match. The brain is a pattern seeking organ. So when you're looking for unlovability, like if I can see it out there, maybe I'll feel better, you will always find what you're looking for.
Okay, so you're talking about what I call my field of neglect. Like I'm looking at it, but it's in my field of neglect. I don't see it. And so with the fact that I am, and I'm just going to use me as an example. I'm not going to use anybody else as an example, unless you guys can relate to what we're talking about right now and share what's that unresolved feeling that you have. And I remember the last time that Carol was in the classroom was in January. By the way, the first time was in, it was June 6th or June 8th. She was in the class. So we're just celebrating our 1 year of knowing each other. So happy anniversary, Carol. And so with that in mind, one of the things that I learned from you is because, as a life coach and going through personal growth, you can really, truly abuse this saying, which is, you see in me who you are, right? And walk away. Well, that's your problem. You see in me who you are, I'm going to walk away. But here's where you added it in January. You said, no, you get to look at yourself and say, where have I done this? And where do I need to forgive myself? And that was that was like the heart piercing where that was so helpful to me, because there have been times I've behaved that way. And that was one of the things that I talked about on Tuesday, which is what you had shared. What do I do with this information? How can I examine my conscience? And it may be, as I examine this and I see, okay, I've acted like this. I've canceled people in my past because I don't agree with them when I was younger. Now I can have a difference of opinion and still love them for who they are and what we have in common, not the things we don't have in common. So I choose to see the things that we have in common. And that's what I teach in my workshops that I do. It's like, okay, what do we have in common? So now here's the thing. Once I make that examination of conscience and say, what is it about that person, not just that reminds me of me, what I've done that I need to forgive, but how can I be patient that God has a plan to transform them too?
Oh, well, it's like the last thing we have to be concerned about is their transformation. Correct. It's like, if my job is my own, because as I change my mind, remember, they're my mirror, and I'm automatically going to see them differently. One of three things will always happen. Let's say with somebody who's been a difficult person, doesn't matter who or why or whatever. But when you begin to go, so let's just use your earlier word of unlovable, and you go, oh, have I ever been unlovable? You go, yes. And then we have to ask ourselves this really important question. And you can just allow a time when you recognized your own unlovable response to come into your awareness. And this is really important to do. And so you can go, okay. And then I would ask, and I've asked about a gazillion people this question, and everybody gives me the same answer 100% of the time. So we know it's what human beings do. And that is, at that time, when you recognize that your response was inappropriate because it was unlovable or blah, 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 it's like, at that moment, with the mindset that you had, with the emotional turmoil that was going on, with the scenario as it was painted in your mind, did you have any other choice? And the answer 100% is no. Our response was a survival response. We were feeling attacked. We were feeling threatened. We were feeling exposed. We were feeling put down. We were feeling whatever we were feeling. And that very raw survival level. And you go, you know what? We cannot fault ourselves for doing the very best we can do under any circumstances, even when the best we can do is pretty awful from some kind of an observer's position. The observer's position doesn't get to count in this matter. In other words, it's like, if I can recognize, you know what, with whatever buttons were being pushed at the moment, and it's always going to be a belief about myself, and that was the highest and best that I could do, then it's time to take the pressure off myself and realize, and guess what? My adversary out here was doing the highest and best he or she could do, given whatever was going on in their mind as well. And so it just kind of levels the playing field, is that nobody's trying to do the worst they can do. I mean, we can say their behavior is terrible, and it may be terrible, but you don't know what's happening in their minds, and you don't know what sort of threat they feel they are under. So when I change my mind and start to be kind to myself and to others who behave that way, and with a kind of understanding that they're doing the best they can do, then everything tends to kind of soften. And what I have found, this really fascinating thing, is one of three things will happen as I change my mind, as I realize, you know, what this is really about is I'm the one who's been walking around in my life declaring I'm unlovable, and so as I let go of that idea, one of three things will happen. My offensive person, the person who's been the trigger, the person who's been the mirror, will, shall we say, organically, not because we're trying to push them away. It's like they will just kind of mysteriously not be in your life anymore. If they're a colleague at work, they may get moved to another office. If there's somebody in your neighborhood, they may get a job someplace else and move. In other words, they will be gone because they're no longer a mirror of what's going on with you because you've healed stuff in you. Or, depending upon the type of behavior, their behavior may remain, but all of a sudden it doesn't bother you anymore. I'll give you an example of that. A long time ago, when I was just finding out about all this, it used to be very annoying to me when people are late. I'm a detailed person. I am a punctual person. I'm a do what I say I'm going to do person. And so somebody would, let's say I'm going to have lunch with somebody and they're late. Well, so my train of thought used to be, well, I guess they just think that their time is really important and mine isn't because I can just sit here and wait for them.
That's the story. Yeah.
And blah, 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 blah. And then at some point in my very beginning stages go, what is it that's going on with me? Like, I mean, this was a new idea that this was like my stuff and not theirs, that there was something. And so when I changed my own mind about, they're not doing this deliberately to me, they're following their own agenda. Well, my gosh, have there been times when I've followed my own agenda? Yes, it might not have shown up in my being late, but it would show up in some other way. You know what happened? People stopped being late. And it was just like a magical spell in some way. And on occasion, when somebody was late, it was like, thank goodness. Back when I used to have a center here in Central Florida, so I did a lot of workshops. There's a big batch of stuff that went on here. So a lot of my clients were local clients instead of, Zoom from all over everywhere. Mm-hmm. And somebody might be 10 minutes late and I would go, thank you, God, they're 10 minutes late. We need this 10 minutes to finish this. So whatever that behavior before, same behavior, someone's late. Now it's an asset instead of a liability. or the other thing is that the behavior just stops. It just mysteriously turns out that nobody ever just shows up to be late anymore, if being late is my example of choice. So it's like, once you begin to really see how my change of mind literally does result in what, from my perspective, is different behavior and different circumstances on the part of other people, then you go, oh, I really do get it, that I really am the author of my experience. I'm not just some kind of a weak little thing here and people just trample all over me and do whatever it is they want to do. It's like, if I'm trampled over, I have initiated that. And this is not the same as taking blame for. Blame and responsibility aren't the same thing. Correct.
And I say that all the time. It's that the responsibility that we talk about in the classroom has nothing to do with blame, shame, fault, or duty. It has everything to do with empowerment and freedom.
Because if I stand in front of my bathroom mirror with my blue shirt on, no one would say, well, it's your fault that there is a blue shirt in the mirror. I mean, we don't use that kind of language. We recognize a reflected image for what it is. Mm-hmm. So, but now here's a really important thing that we must keep in mind with this kind of taking responsibility. You see, before, we thought what we had to do was either promote my own sense of self, but certainly protect it. I've got to have all my little defenses, either physical defenses or psychological defenses, operating out of the completely false assumption that I don't know how people are going to behave. They could be nice, they could not be nice. And so I'm going to defend myself. Well, the problem with that is, first of all, the premise is incorrect. I'm the one who's going to determine what their behavior is. But secondarily, when I'm defensive in my own mind, what I'm saying, even if I don't say the words out loud, you might say energetically, I'm saying, you are guilty. I don't know what you're guilty of yet, but I give you the power to hurt me, to say something or reject me or do whatever, or leave me out or something like that. So my defenses against you make the statement to them, you're guilty. And I'm not necessarily verbally. In fact, it's much more powerful when I behave in a kind of a guarded way, because the message I'm giving at many levels is, you're guilty. I don't know of what, but I'm going to give you the gift of guilt. That's what my defense will do. It will say to you, you're guilty either of potential or having an inclination or the possibility or whatever. Now, here is the big problem with that. First of all, the premise is inaccurate, but secondarily, here is one of the most important things we'll ever hear. The gifts that I offer to someone else, I'm the first recipient of. And you go, really? Mm-hmm. So if my defenses are offering them, whoever the them might be, I'm basically saying to you, I think you're guilty or capable of being guilty. Guess what? I am increasing my own sense of guilt and therefore my own sense of punishment. Remember, guilt and punishment are two sides of the same coin. Where there is one, there will always be the other. So that when I live in a defensive way, I'm adding to my own guilt and therefore my own punishment and digging myself into a deeper hole. Like, oh dear, defenses are making things worse for me instead of better. Yeah. And
go ahead, keep going. Keep on with the and. I thought you were done. Okay. And
but the point is that the moral of the story is, I have to slowly, because it's a process and not an event, to just simply dispel the notion that I am ever at the mercy of forces outside myself. I am at the center. I am the cause, and the world that I live in on a daily basis is the effect. We pretend like just the opposite is the truth. It's like the world has all the power out here to do things to me and to influence my life, and it's nothing but a great big mirror. So that, and A Course in Miracles uses a phrase that I love. It says, the world is your ego's, because that's your ego is the story you've made up about yourself. It's not the reality of you. Your world is the ego's self-portrait. So that every single thing that occurs, plus or minus, has an internal origin. And it's just sitting out here showing you the effect of your own thoughts. Because one of the second or third or fourth notion that we have that's incorrect is that, you know what, my thoughts are just kind of in my head someplace and they're just private to me and nobody knows what they are. And so I can be mean, or I can wish people ill, or I can complain, or I can do whatever I want to do. And it's just in my mind and doesn't have any effect. Nothing. All our thoughts are super powerful. They must be, because it's my thoughts that make my world. Take a look around at the world that you've just made, that you're sitting in right now. It's like, who could possibly say my thoughts are not powerful when it's ended up being the environment I find myself in at any given moment? So thoughts are both all powerful and they are not private. We act like I have like my little mind right here, and I have my little thoughts in my little mind. It's like, nope, we share one mind. And, when you kind of get what's really going on correct, so to speak, then you go, my thoughts are powerful. I want my thoughts to be loving thoughts. I want my thoughts to be generous thoughts, knowing that every single sentient being that ever was or is the recipient of whatever it is I'm adding to the mix. And there's a responsibility there of, I want my thoughts to be loving thoughts and generous thoughts and healing thoughts and inclusive thoughts and understanding thoughts and releasing thoughts, because not only am I the beneficiary, but I add to the storehouse, so to speak, of the common storehouse of thoughts we all share. So if we really want to be helpful, we can stay home in our house all by ourselves, and you go, oh, I don't know what I can do to be helpful. You could be kind to yourself, to everybody else, to realize that even when people are doing terrible things, it's the highest and best they can do. They need to not be judged for their words and behavior, but because at the essence level, they are still an expression of love.
Wow, that's a lot to take in, Carol. That's a
Yes,
lot to count. It is, and for those of you who are listening today and watching later on, or watching today and listening later on, just know that if you type in a Q, like if you're watching live, you can type in a Q, write your question down, and today we're going to have a very tiny Teacher's Pet Corner, but if you ask your question within enough time, we might be able to get to it before the Teacher's Pet Corner as well. Mm-hmm. This is about the responsibility that I talk about here in the classroom. That's not very popular, by the way. It's not very popular. It's not sexy. Yeah. We love to blame people and to take ownership. And here's the thing, if we created it, we can uncreate it. We have the power.
That's it. It's not like I have vast power to make a mistake, but only a tiny little power to undo it. It's like, no, power is power is power. Yes. And to hide your head in the sand and go, no, my life is not my fault, it's somebody else's fault. It's like, disempowering. That's not a crime, but it keeps you from using your own power in a way that can allow you to have a life that you deserve to have. Correct. No one else keeps us from having the life that we deserve to have.
Absolutely. And so this is the kind of information that you're going to get here in the classroom. And so I want to encourage you to go to whenyounneedafriend.com. While you're there, please subscribe, because we're going to start broadcasting from whenyounneedafriend.com. Just be paying attention. So when you subscribe to whenyounneedafriend.com and we go live, nobody's going to put me in the bottom of the barrel. You guys get to choose, because we're always in choice. You get to choose if you want to watch the classroom from wherever social media that you want to live. Also check out my social media, like and follow that, and my sponsors, support them the way they're supporting the classroom. And you can also support the classroom in two ways. You can go to the Shop Now section and check out different products that are Lily approved, 100% Lily approved. I do not compromise with my products. So check out the beauty products, Keep Me Safe Organics, all the way to ways that you can be pain-free or depression-free naturally, as opposed to taking a pill. As you know, my registered service mark is you could take a pill or you can take responsibility. As you know, the responsibility that I'm talking about is the one where you change whatever you can change and you take ownership of it and say, if the buck stop here, it's going to stop with me because I can change whatever, because God gives me the power at the moment I need it, when I need it, how I need it. And that's the beauty of God. And last, you can become an enrolled student in the classroom. So you can donate a dollar or $1,000 a month, whether it's your time, your talent, your treasure, every bit, a penny, every bit of it is very much appreciated. And so today, as you know, been so excited, I've been talking about Carol all week long, that she's going to be in the classroom today. How are you taking all this information in? Are you sitting with it? Are you sitting with it going, oh, this is not my fault. This is not my fault. It's not about fault. It's never been about fault. And if you want to learn more about Carol, you can go to carolhowe.com. And that's Howe is spelled Howe. But listen, if you're a subscriber, you already have in her name. When you click on her name in the blog, it takes you right to her website where you can learn about everything she's up to. Do you have any events coming up, Carol, or places where people can go to learn more about A Course in Miracles? And I do want to talk about what is A Course in Miracles for people that have never learned about it.
I've tried to greatly limit my guest appearances in other places because I've been really, really busy creating an audio book of the text of A Course in Miracles.
And I want that.
It's been an enormous project and it's just about finished. I've recorded everything. It's been through various levels of where I've gone through and edited and all that kind of stuff. And it's I had no intention of doing this whatsoever. But one of the things that I've realized is all my life is I get little, what I call guidance telegrams. It's like I'm living my life, think I'm going this direction, and in comes a little thought. It's kind of directional. It always seems like it comes from the left. It's like, record chapter 31 of the text. This was like late last August. And it's like, I think I almost said out loud to nobody in my house, hey, that's not what I do for these weekend things. I create some little video thing. And it's like, record chapter 31 of the text. It's like, okay. And so I did. And I got so much feedback from people saying, would you please record the whole text? And I thought, this is not on my list of things to do. I've got this and this and this and this and this ahead of me. But within about 48 hours, I realized, yes, this is mine to do. And the thing that made it easy is the first edition of the text of the whole work is in the public domain. So I didn't have to ask anybody if this is okay. Nobody could either grant or forbid permission. It was like the whole thing was just a setup. So one of the things that one realizes when you take responsibility and not blame is that you've got lots of help. You're not just kind of flailing around on your own. And it's very reliable. It's like we're just not used to listening, I think. In other words, in terms of if an idea comes like, make this model, record this, call this person. I've long since realized that even if it makes no sense or interferes with what I think ought to be done, do it, because always it's going to be the right thing to do. So there's this massive wisdom and intuition, which is always here when I need a friend.
I tell you what, I stop.
Got a built-in friend.
That's right. I stop when I get those thoughts. I know where those thoughts are coming from. And those are the most beautiful thoughts that we can get, are the ones that they're there like first thing in the morning or right before I go to bed, especially those when you're not guarded and they come in and you go, okay, these are my voice, the voice of God talking to me, and I better stop and listen. And
Absolutely.
I want to encourage all of you, when you get those voices, that those thoughts in your head to do something and you say no, don't worry, God will find somebody else to do it. God will find somebody else to bless. But when I've said yes, and the times I've said yes, and I go, oh my gosh, if I knew all that was going to be a part of that, I would have said no. I was shielded from whatever it was that I needed not to know in order for me to say yes. There's so many times life begins after my yes. And I really love the opportunity. Now, once I say yes, and I know that God's going to give me whatever I need when I need it, at the moment I need it, I know that that's going to happen. But then once you get to that place where now that you know the rest of the story, we're always at choice to say no, but we know that yes that came out was divine. And so it's following that yes to fruition, which is good job on you.
Brought up a very important point, and that is sometimes a very strong sense of intuition, you can just call it that,
yes,
will lead you to something which then leads to, let's say, an unpleasant or an unfortunate or a sad or a, what, like, was that really intuition? It's like, yes, because what that sometimes will lead you to is to finally realize. I remember, without going into any of the details, doing this at one point in my life, long time ago. And it led to a realization that seems obvious now, but it wasn't then. It was so long ago, how much I always thought I had to settle for second best. And whatever the distress was that was related to this circumstance was worth it for me to have that recognition. This was way before I knew what all I know now, which I can process stuff so much faster and easier, but this was decades ago. And I thought, this was crucially important, that I really recognized that I was carrying this burden of feeling like that somehow I was undeserving enough that I was just always going to have to settle for second best. Recognizing that and let it go, then opened the door to an entirely new chapter in my life, which I could not have had occur until this belief, that was a very central belief, was brought up, and you might say kind of hanging in front of my eyes where I couldn't avoid it. Yeah. So sometimes following your intuition doesn't lead you immediately to bliss. It may lead you to a learning experience, which you have to have.
That's right, because it'll keep showing up. I remember a story, and we only have a couple of minutes in the podcast, but we'll tell this. We'll go into the story later on. I want to say, A Course in Miracles changed your life. And one of the reasons why you are speaking about Course in Miracles is because you were trained by the founders of A Course in Miracles. So if somebody were to walk in now and say, what is A Course in Miracle, and why should I even look into it? What would you say? We've got 2 minutes.
What you say is that it's a device for helping you radically change your mind about yourself, your mission, what you're really all about. In other words, it's radical in its ability to reorient you in a direction of more love, less fear, more love, less guilt, because guilt and fear is a life wrecker. And so this is trading guilt and fear for the loving experience that is your birthright.
Yes. And for those of you that are not subscribed, you may want to subscribe, because in the next 3 weeks, so this week we talked to Carol. Next week we'll have a watch party, and the week after that we'll also have because I'll be on vacation the week after that, and we're also going to have the January class that we did that just opened up new possibilities. When you take a look at yourself, that examination of conscience without being shamed of whatever the past is, and say, well, I did the best that I could at that time. And I've been able to go back and ask people for forgiveness. I did the best that I could at the time, but if I had the choice today, I would not do it. And for that reason, I forgive myself. And those are the things that we've got to start. And Carol, thank you so much for the work that you have done. We're going to continue talking to Carol. I know that there's some questions in the Teacher's Pet Corner. So if you have your questions, type in your cues. And please remember, I'll be right here waiting for you worldwide at whenyouneedafriend.com. This is Lillian McDermott and Carol Howe wishing you love, peace, joy, and unexpected abundance. Make it the best day ever.
The opinions and advice expressed on the Lillian McDermott radio show are intended for the individual callers and guests on the program and are presented to our wider audience solely for general educational purposes. Please act responsibly and consult personally with your own medical, psychological, or nutritional expert before taking any steps to improve your life.
Okay, we have some questions. And so the first question is, how do you project love again? How do you project love? So that's a great question, because if you are unloving to yourself, or if you have that truth about yourself that you may be unlovable, and that was from childhood, that thought was planted, that seed was planted, how do you start projecting love?
You simply decide what I'm going to focus on now is the best interest of whoever I'm talking to, whoever I'm with. In other words, their well-being is now going to sort of capture my attention. In other words, to simply have a desire. I want them to know that they're cared for, that they're interesting, that they have a right to be here, that I'm glad I'm engaged with them. In other words, this is just simply a decision we make as we relate to somebody.
Yes, very good. Okay, so I'm going to look at the questions that are pertinent to today's conversation. So I'm not going to get into any controversial stuff, Stephen. What happens when they don't show up? Have you ever had a near-death experience?
Have I?
Yes.
A near-death experience? No.
No. And, and people that have had a near-death experience, when you talk to other people, they say that when you're dreaming, when that's the same equivalent of these near-death experiences. And so I have no idea, I've never had one either, but I've interviewed people with near-death experiences. And I've also interviewed people that have said that near-death experience are people just going into a coma or going to a sleep, or I don't know. I have no idea. All I know is that they didn't die, and no one's ever died and come back other than Jesus. And, and so that was a long time ago. So I don't know what the truth is about that. But if anybody else has any other questions, please type in a Q. And do not project it onto yourself, then to others. Super. Do not project it onto yourself, then to others. So basically, I don't know if that's a question or what. So what I'm hearing you say, Carol, is when you want to project love, then what you do is you stop thinking about yourself, and you're there for the other person and learn more about them. Did I get that right?
Absolutely. And you see, this is the ultimate win-win situation. So that because I'm either at any given moment, there's always a binary choice. I'm either focused on the promotion and protection of my ego mind, which is not ever the good choice, although that's what we're taught, or I'm interested in being truly helpful and considerate and loving and so on of of either whoever's with me or myself or my situation or whatever. In other words, the focus of my attention is always on one of those two things. So naturally, if I'm with somebody, what I want to do is to give them my undivided attention. In other words, there's nothing that's quite so lovely as doing that, and where you're fully listening to them and you're making them the centerpiece of your attention at that moment. And it's a win-win-win. It's not like one sacrifices when one does that, because being there for other people is a delight for us. I don't ever feel diminished or upset or like I'm left out or something when I deal with all the people I'm dealing with. I love to do it. I'm the first beneficiary of what I can do to be helpful to somebody else.
How do you then, when you're in service, because I consider myself, when I'm coaching, when I'm doing the class, when I am at a party, there are times where I feel so much in service that I forget at times to take care of myself. How do you shift from being there for everybody to shifting and saying, okay, I need some time for myself?
That your intuition will just do that. In other words, it's like, if I'm following my intuition, if it's appropriate at some point to go off and regroup, my intuition is going to indicate that. It will kind of indicate, okay, bring closure to this. As it turns out, for me personally, that doesn't ever happen, because I get so involved in the well-being of whoever I'm talking to. I could just go on and on and on and on. In other words, I'm not depriving myself. I'm adding to myself by being there for someone else. So I don't really ever find myself in a situation where I think, oh, I've got to go take care of myself. Now, if I did, I would. In other words, if I thought, oh, I can't answer one more question, but that's a very unusual situation for me.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm seeing comments, and if you put a Q, then I'll read it if it's a question. But if you're making a comment, I'll read after the class today, because it is so important that we truly, and this is to me, the most important aspect of what you're talking about, is to be able to truly look at ourselves, flaws and all.
Yeah.
And forgive ourselves for any moment. But then when you're going to the other person, that rejection triggers back. So how often do you practice? Like, have you, like you say, okay, this is triggering me. They have I am triggering. These are things that are triggering me. I can choose to stop that. I can choose that, but I can have an opportunity to say, why is this triggering me? Right? This is the process. So can you give us like step 1, step 2, step 3 that you went through so that you can sit back and be the observer? I can actually be the observer in my life and say, let me look at this objectively here. It's not them that I'm upset with. It's that I am fearful that I'm going to get found out.
It always reduces to without going through everything else again, it always reduces to, I am carrying a belief that is unloving about myself, either that I'm not worthy, or that I don't measure up, or I'm not as good as other people, or in other words, it's some sort of an attack upon myself that I have not seen as optional. I've thought this is really true about me, and life is about avoiding this, hiding this, not letting anybody know about this. And it's like, it's my responsibility to discover those things that are there. And everybody, because of the way the brain functions in our very early 2 or 3 years, there's nobody on the planet who escapes this. It's not like some people are not afflicted with believing things about themselves that aren't true. It's like Everybody does. So when I realize I'm my own worst enemy, I'm the one who's carrying this idea around. And here is a really important part to add to this.
Okay.
And that is, we act like all of the things that I've done wrong, all of my inappropriate responses, all of, whatever I think is the matter with my words and deeds, we act like they're kind of following behind us like this ever-growing pile of transgressions. And like the older I get, the more awful I become, or some such thing.
Here comes Lillian.
Well, guess what? There's not a great big pile of transgressions, because listen to this. This is crucial. The past does not exist. There's not any big pile of transgressions anyplace. It's like the only moment that exists is right now. Now, what we've made up a story that says, I am unsuccessful now, or I'm unhappy now, or I'm unloved now because of all of this stuff back here, either what people did to me, what I did to them. It's like, that's nonsense. If that were true, if my upset today were because of stuff that happened in the past that I can't do anything about, then we'd all have to just kind of go off and jump off a cliff. But that's a big lie. So we've made up a story that cause and effect is horizontal like this, that the effect is today, but the cause was back then. Or sometimes we pretend like the cause is sometime in the future, like I'm so upset now because what if my kids don't have a good life? It's like, I'm always, it's a vertical arrangement. If I'm upset today, the cause is today, this moment, and it's always something I believe. So now that's a very big help to go get past and future out of the mix. Every moment is a brand new, clean moment. But what I do is I keep refreshing the notions about myself that aren't true and sort of contaminating this brand new, nice, clean moment by continuing to believe that I'm not okay, there's something the matter with me, blah, 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 I'm unlovable. And it's like, so it's my responsibility to do my work in this moment. I'm not going back and fixing something back there because it's not back there to fix. I must, however, take responsibility for recognizing that, yes, I incorporated some ideas that were false when in my early days. At the metaphysical level, I bring them with me to heal. At the time and space level, they get embedded when I'm little. So it doesn't matter, whichever. We've built a self-concept. We've built an ego. We've built a sense of separate self that has included these falsehoods. And it's our job to recognize they're there, take them out. Now, an example which is as old as the hills, it's as unoriginal an example as you can get, is when you go to a movie and you have a projector that's projecting one little frame at a time onto the screen, you notice that this frame can't move in front of, the light that's projecting through it until the next one moves on. So if I'm watching a movie, there's only one frame at a time on the screen. And it's like, once whatever happens in this day is gone, it's gone. But the key is all of those images flashing across the screen is never touched. The screen doesn't have blood splattered all over it if it's a horror movie. It's like the screen is completely separate from what's getting projected on it. And it's like the truth of us is as unsoiled and as originally beautiful and as pure as in whatever we would consider our coming into being, which of course is always, so we can't, there's not like there's a beginning, but we've feared that our words and deeds have somehow permanently ruined us or belittled us or something. It hasn't touched the truth of us. So you keep that in mind. A movie screen is still pure, white, untouched. It doesn't matter what's projected onto it. It's pure. And the same is true of us.
I love that. Okay, so last question and last scenario I'm going to give you before we go, because today I've got a short time, and I want to get everything done, but I don't want to let you go, Carol. So let's say let's do some role playing. I'm going to come to you, Carol, and I'm upset with you. You treat me with disrespect. Everything you say offends me. And I'm going to come to you and I'm going to say, you are intentional with trying to drive me crazy. So what do you say back to somebody? Because now you're the one that's being confronted, or I'm the one that's being confronted by somebody, but we're going to do some role playing where I'm confronting you with something. And that was never your intention to do any of those things. How do you respond to someone? I hope this helps everybody here.
Yes.
It's like happened so many times.
Yes. And actually this never happens. But if it did, I would say, you know what? I sure do hear how upset you are. I surely do hear that, you're feeling very isolated, or you're feeling attacked, or you're feeling displaced in some way. And I would love for us to have a conversation so we could go like, what is that about? In other words, what's the real origin of this? And it's like, so I would not pick up the other end of the rope to play the tug of war rope. I would go, I sure can see how upset you are. And so let's see what we can do about that.
I love that. What a great way to end today's class. I hope all of you, find that this was helpful. Check out the Tuesday class, which is how to forgive and reconcile and achieve personal growth. And through this is all to get stronger and better. And so, that gratitude, you can only do A Course in Miracles through the eyes of gratefulness or gratitude, because to me, to be able to respond that way is to be grateful to hear how the other person feels and say, wow, I can see that you feel or you're hurt. I can see that. Let's discuss it.
You can hear it as the call for help that it is. And it's like, well, then offer help. So that the call of help may be presented to you as an accusation, like you don't ever do anything right or whatever. It's still a call for help. So answer the call for help that's embedded in the behavior or the words, as the case may be.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much, Carol. Her website is carolhowe.com. Stay tuned. Pretty soon she'll have A Course in Miracles as an audio. Is that going to be something you're going to sell, or is it going to be on your...
Absolutely. We're within, I hope, a couple of weeks of starting to upload it onto the audiobook platform. So this is not like way off in the future someplace, unless
I am so excited.
Something occurs between now and then that takes my attention someplace else. It will be available soon, and I will make an announcement.
Will you be willing to come back and we can talk about this?
Sure.
Absolutely. Wonderful. I don't ever want to be away from you. I just love being with you. I love our classes together. Thank you so much, Carol, for the many years, for over 40 years, right? You've been doing this?
45
years. And if you ever learn about A Course in Miracles, this is the leading expert, Carol Howe. Anyone else has either learned from her, but she learned from the original. So thank you so much, Carol, for continuing the work that you do. And I know that you are changing lives with your mission. So thank you.
Thank you, dear.
And thank you to everybody. On Monday, you're going to hear Carol again on the watch party. And then also the following week, you're going to get her as well, because we're going to be talking about, we're going to continue talking about this, because this is holding us back in so many different ways that we don't even know. And we still blame somebody else when we have the power all along. Click your heels, Dorothy, because you had the power all along.